Hi and welcome to the 5-Minute Business Boost, where you get to choose your 5-minute investment. I'm your host, Sam Nix, and I'll be discussing topics under the headings of business development, marketing, photography, and much more.
Hi and welcome to this week's 5-Minute Business Boost. So today I am talking about a favourite subject because you know me, I've always got a camera in my hand. So this episode is around AI and photography because we've really already got it in our camera bags and on our laptops and on our devices. So if you use a phone, a camera, Photoshop, Lightroom or an online gallery to manage your photographs, there's a very good chance you're already using AI. You may not just realise it. And that's what I want to talk about today, because when we hear the words AI and photography, our minds tend to jump straight into completely AI generated, and I know it's getting better, but, like 12 months ago, 2 years ago, it was people with 6 fingers, products floating mysteriously in space, weird text. I can remember when I did one about my boxer dogs and they ended up with so many different paws and long tails and 3 ears. But a lot has changed in the AI space regarding photography. And sometimes you can get photographs that look just a little bit too perfect to actually be real. But in AI, in photography, it's much bigger than image generation. And it's increasingly sitting quietly beside the tools that photographers, businesses, and content creators already use. So today I want to look at where AI is appearing in photography, from your iPhone right through to your favorite DSLR and mirrorless cameras, Photoshop, tools such as Magnific, and even your online client galleries. And more importantly, how you decide which bits of it are actually useful to you. So let's start with the camera in our pockets. So this is our iPhone. This might be your device. I use iPhone, so I talk about iPhone as a device. Modern smartphones are already doing an enormous, enormous amount of computational work. Can't even say that either. I need more coffee. So they're actually computing work every time we take a photograph. I mean, I look back at my original phone and, the tiny little camera on it, and I used to think that was pretty cool, to what I've got now. Holy moly. This camera phone is making decisions about exposure, color, contrast, detail, noise, HDR, and how several images may be combined to produce a final photograph you see on your screen. And, look at all the filters and so forth that you can use. That's pretty awesome. And most of us don't even think about that. But that's actually AI. We simply point the phone at something and take the photograph. And that's probably one of the biggest change we're going to see with AI generally, that we need to stop thinking of AI as a separate product. It's already part of the applications and devices we are already using. So now, does that mean your iPhone replaces a DSLR or a mirrorless camera? Well, for me, no. I see them as different tools because I use both. My phone is brilliant when I need something quick, when I'm creating content, when I need to take a quick photo or video, when I'm documenting something happening in front of me, or when I'm carrying the camera isn't simply that practical. My professional camera, however, gives me much more control over lenses, lighting, depth of field, files, and the final result. But AI doesn't suddenly make those photography skills irrelevant. You still need to understand light, composition, your subject, the purpose of the photograph, and what you're actually trying to communicate. In fact, those traditional photography skills, I think, become more surprisingly useful when you start using AI, which brings me to prompting. I recently listened to a Social Media Examiner AI episode with Michael Stelzner and Lauren Devane about creating better AI imagery. And of course, my little head just exploded. I enjoyed the episode. And in that episode, Lauren talked about 7 areas to consider when creating an AI image. Things like your subject, your setting, composition, lighting, aesthetic, and the intention behind your image. And while I was listening, I thought, you know what? Photographers already know this language. If I asked a photographer to create a portrait using soft window light with the subject slightly off center, use a shallow depth of field and a warm editorial feel, I would know that they know exactly what I'm talking about. But AI doesn't. You have to tell it. You have to show it. So if you have photography experience, don't assume that you're starting from scratch when it comes to AI image tools. A lot of what makes a good photographer also makes you better at directing AI, because why? You already understand what makes a photograph work. Then we move across to editing. And this is where I think AI is becoming much more obvious. Take Photoshop. For years, if you've been a Photoshopper like I have since 2002, goodness, that's a long time ago now. For years, we've been using it for retouching, cropping, color correction, removing objects, and manipulating images. And it doesn't matter if you're working on RAWs or JPEGs, but Photoshop has been a steadfast there, right? Now, AI features are embedded into Adobe Photoshop. And those AI features can help remove distractions, extend backgrounds, generate additional content, and make much more complicated edits considerably faster. Now, that doesn't mean as I'm editing, I automatically press the AI button on every photograph, because sometimes the traditional tool gives me a better result and I can fart around with it if I want to. But sometimes the AI tool gives me the result in 30 seconds or less instead of 10 minutes. And sometimes AI produces something completely ridiculous and you can undo it immediately. The other day I asked Photoshop to remove a white background on a subject that I'd taken a photo of it and replace it with a graduated grey background, and it gave me a Christmas theme. And I love Christmas, but I stood there and I laughed and I thought, well, maybe I got the prompt wrong, because sometimes you can think something and write it and it goes upside down. But yeah, I absolutely roared laughing. And that's still very much part of the experience because it's still evolving, it's still developing. Fast forward 12 months, I think the AI within Adobe will be so much better, quicker, faster, all of those things. But it's still very much part of the experience. But I suppose the important part of all this is that you're already paying for AI capability really without realizing it. And I know some of the old schoolers will say, well, when I pay for my Adobe, I don't want AI. And that's fine. But I don't think you really have a choice. And I think now the AI is embedded in. It's whether or not you choose to use it when you're in the platform or not. So before rushing off and subscribing to yet another AI photography platform, look closely at the software you already have. Open the menus. Firstly, before you open the menus, make sure you've updated to the latest version. But open the menus and have a look at what the latest feature updates might be. Look at the help section, search the tutorials, because you might discover the function that you're about to pay for another company for is already included in your existing subscription. And I know that, sometimes you have AI tools and subscriptions, and then all of a sudden you have an epiphany and you think, oh my God, I'm actually paying for one tool over two platforms. So time to strip back, people. Okay, so now we have specialist AI tools. Now, one example is Magnific. Now, Magnific originally became well known for image enhancement and upscaling, but tools like this are increasingly moving towards much broader AI image creation and editing. So you can take an existing image and enhance it. You can work with reference images, you can generate variations, and you can explore different visual treatments. And for a photographer, designer, or product-based business, these tools can open up some fascinating possibilities. Imagine you photographed a product beautifully in the studio, but rather than generating an entirely fake product, you might be able to use the real product photograph as your reference and experiment with different environments or campaign concepts around it. And I think this is where it particularly becomes interesting for small business, because you're not necessarily replacing the photography, you're building on the photography. And this is, I think, an important distinction here. So in the past, I've photographed food and then I've put it into AI and I've asked the AI to animate it or to make it realistically looking like a comic, or, giving it a theatrical vibe to it. So this is where I'm talking about that I've taken the base photographs, they're mine, but then I've asked AI to enhance and to play around with it. So sometimes the concept in your head, you may not have 6 hours to sit there and spend time on, Photoshop or whatever platform you're using to extend that idea from out of your head onto the computer screen. But AI can help you do that because AI is also changing and what happens after the shoot. So if you've ever photographed an event, wedding, school, sports day, or anything involving hundreds, sometimes thousands of images, you all know the glamorous part of photography finishes fairly quickly because you've got to sort it. You've got to cull it. You've got to rename, organize, uploading, whatever your workflow is, because all photographers have different workflows. And then you've got to find people in galleries. Now, online photography platforms such as Zenfolio, and I've been using Zenfolio now for a few years and I love Zenfolio, they are now starting to incorporate AI functionality into that part of the workflow. So it can identify similar photographs with AI. It can also assist with culling. It doesn't like duplicates. It can recognize faces. And, the thing around it recognizing faces is that now that face finding technology can help somebody locate photographs of themselves in a large online gallery. Hello, how cool is that? Now, it may not sound as exciting as generating an extraordinary fantasy image, but it saves a professional photographer several hours after every shoot. And that I think is far, far more valuable. Now, this is where I think businesses should be looking at AI, not, I suppose, around that whole what is the coolest thing AI can do, but really around where am I losing time as a business owner? Because the most valuable AI tool might be not be the one that creates something spectacular. It might be the one that quietly removes 2 hours of repetitive work from your week. But there is another side to this. And I know the ones listening to this podcast will be going, but Sam, come on. So subscriptions, credits, privacy, training data, and then learning how the actual thing works. So before signing up to another AI tool, I'd be asking a few questions. What is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Is that capability already built into the software I already pay for? Is it time to open up that piece of software that I haven't used for a while and see if there's an update and see whether or not there's an AI capability built into that I haven't noticed? Is the AI included in my subscription or do I need to purchase additional credits? Can I turn the AI features on and off? And what happens to the photographs I upload? Am I comfortable uploading client photographs to that platform? I think that one's out for discussion. And perhaps more importantly, does the company actually teach me how to use the product? Because there's very little point paying $20, $30, $50 or more per every month for another piece of software that sits quietly on your PC while you keep doing everything the old way. So you need to look out for those tutorials and webinars. You need to look for the knowledge base. Watch demonstrations. If YouTube is your thing and they've got some YouTube links, maybe spend a rainy afternoon watching a few of those videos. Watch the demonstrations. I mean, I know I get out there and I read all the reviews, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because sometimes I learn so much just from the reviews. And I know there's some crackpots out there doing reviews, but what it does is it gives you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you can weigh it up and see what other photographers are doing with the tool, And, if you're looking at a new piece of software, take advantage of free trials when they're available and actually give yourself some time to learn it. So where does that leave us all? AI isn't coming to photography because it's already here. It's already in the phone in your pocket. It's appearing inside your favorite editing software, and it's helping us photographers sort and manage thousands of photographs, which I really love. And it's creating completely new images when we want it to. And it's beginning to change what is possible between taking the actual photograph and delivering the finished work. But you don't need to use every AI tool. Please, people, don't have 10 subscriptions. And certainly you don't need to abandon the photography skills you've spent years learning, because really you want to start the job that you're trying to improve. And maybe it's as simple as you want to edit faster. Maybe you want to improve an old photograph. Maybe you need better product content. Maybe you photograph hundreds of people and need a better way of organising galleries. You need to find the problem first, then investigate whether AI can generally help to solve it. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to use more AI. The goal is to use the right tools to produce better work, save you time, and make running your business just that little bit easier. So that's it for your 5-minute business boost this week. Choose your 5-minute investment wisely. Hopefully you've done that. Listen to my podcast and read my monthly newsletter. And other than that, stay sassy, buy local, and I'll chat to you next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the 5-Minute Business Boost. For more information, follow me on socials, sign up for my newsie, or check out my website to see how we can work together to reach your small business goals. Remember, anything is possible, especially in the northeast of Victoria. Until next time, cheerio!